It is nearing the end of 2022, and there have been a cornucopia of anime films that have come out in the UK cinemas this year. So now it's time to rank them. I took all the anime films that came out, removed the Scotland Loves Anime Film Festival films, which left me with 17 films. So with that all out the way, here are my top 10 anime films that came out in UK cinema in 2022. Quintessential Quintuplets, the movie, is a good film that should not have been made. The source material is good, the animation is fine, but it is way too long, being 2 hours and 16 minutes in length, making it the longest anime film I saw this year. This is on top of it being a conclusion to the anime TV series, so instead of it feeling like you're watching a nice self-contained movie like the other films on this list, it felt like they had cut together 6 anime episodes and forced you to binge watch them all in one go. Now this was not a terrible experience, as the source material is highly rated, but after watching it, you feel that an anime season would have been the better adaptation for the source material. So overall, it is a good film that felt like a shortened version of a great season of anime that we will unfortunately never get to see. Nonetheless, if you like the quintuplet anime, this is a solid film, but because of my desire to see an actual season of anime for the source material that's adapting, I could not rank it higher than 10th on this list. OG Gundam is back on the big screen! For one night only. This film is based off an episode of the original Gundam series that was never aired, and despite having new animation, it still gives off the vibe of an old school anime of its artistic choices. There are some minor tone problems and some scenes that should have been consolidated, but you can say that about most great old school anime. So if you want to watch some original Gundam before it got bogged down with numerous different spin-offs and universes, this movie will definitely feel like nostalgia fix. I cannot tell you if this is the best place to jump into as a first time viewer to Gundam, since I'm also new to the series, but personally I found it thoroughly enjoyable. And if you like the original Gundam series, chances are you'd have already watched this, and if this is the first time you've heard about this movie, go and watch it. Goodbye Don Glees is an oddball anime, as on one hand it feels like a great adventure film that has a near perfect encapsulation of feelings around growing up, and the stress you have placed on you to succeed. And on the other hand, I find it really fumbles around the pivotal emotional drive of the story, to use non-spoilery language. As in they just cut away from one of the characters and have them never appear again after the film's adventure portion ends. Which undermines some of the emotional moments in the film, as you would have expected the Don Glees gang to have stuck together throughout the problem that was unfolding. With my major gripe with the film gone, I personally loved the fluid character animation and sense of adventure that this film has, as it gives off a unique feeling of exploring the unknown rural landscape of Japan that has many twists and turns containing a variety of obstacles on their way. If you loved Further Than the Universe, this film is designed for you, as it was directed and written by Atsuko Ishiku, who worked on the anime. The film's ending ties up the story in a nice little bow, and is a great callback to the other mysterious elements of the film, and its tone and setting easily make up for the issues I have. Besides, this was not the only film I ran into this issue with. This movie was tough to place in my rankings, as it contains loads of great individual anime moments, such as the dance fight, and one of my favourite ending sequences in this top 10. However, as an overall product, it felt like it was lacking that feeling of cohesion and plot elements, while also falling into the third act trap of suddenly changing what the story was about before it ends. Similar to Don Glees, there are moments where you have to suspend your disbelief and just roll with what had occurred on screen, but I found the execution of these elements to be of such high calibre as to negate the suspension of disbelief. Similar to the other films on this list, the songs and music are good, but not to the same level as the other musical pieces on this list, which is why this film is rated lower. In this case, the sum of its individual parts makes it a worthwhile anime film to watch on its own, and I do love the individual songs that Shion sings to Satomi's friends to resolve their problems. And speaking of great songs, Inyo is an opera set in 14th century Japan, singing about an event that occurred in 11th century Japan. From that description, it may seem like a stale film. However, despite its stale premise, this film absolutely nails its execution. From the amazing animation to the score used for the musical scenes, with the pivotal musical moments involving Inyo sucking you in, and making you feel breathless with its beautiful choreography and scene-perfect match between its music and animation. That being said, the music when Inyo is not present I found to be a bit meh, as it felt like they were singing for time until the next excellent scene involving him appeared, and it shows with the animation feeling like a step down in comparison. Without going to spoilers, I understand why they went with the ending they did, as it does make sense in universe, but it felt a bit tacked on, as the film had already felt like it had resolved its major character arcs. With that being said, if you like music, great animation, and an original story done through song, this is the anime film for you. Fortune Favours Lady Niku-chan is similar to Goodbye Don Glees, as it is a story about growing up, only this time following a girl starting puberty. I prefer it to Don Glees because it has more of a sense of fun and enjoyment, as despite the deceptively heavier tone when the film starts, the film's tone is actually very light and comedic throughout the film, where even when the film tries to make a conflict out as important, you always got the feeling that the issues that the main character had were low stakes. This is easily shown as one of the key story beats in this film is a minor disagreement over playing basketball that the characters easily reconcile over. Furthermore, all the anime also aired Denji Meets Girl before the film started, so not only did you get to see a good film, you also got to enjoy a nice relaxing short story similar to the Pixar shorts before the main film started, which is always a bonus. And in a year where the main anime film releases were filled with action and sadness, it was nice to have a film that you were able to relax and watch, knowing that nothing bad was going to happen, even if it was predictable. And speaking of predictability, oh boy, I know I'm going to be crucified for this ranking, so let me say this first. One Piece Red is an exceptionally good shonen film. It just lives in an incredibly competitive neighbourhood. The music is amazing and well integrated to the story, and the shonen battle scenes are decent. The problem with the film is that the pacing is off, with the film bouncing around to several locations trying to add as many characters in as possible, while also trying to explain what is going on. Then, once the film has explained to the audience what is going on, it then immediately jumps into the final act boss battle without any further delay. Also, without spoilers, there is one scene near the end of the film where one of the characters makes a throwaway line which basically invalidates the entirety of the film and makes you question why the film even existed to begin with. With the pacing issues the show has, and with a plot hole that big, I cannot rank it as one of the top 3 anime films of this year, despite how amazing the musical performance and character acting was. It is still an exciting emotional rollercoaster of film, which draws you in and keeps you entertained throughout, with you wanting to listen to Uta's songs when you get home. It just lacks an in-universe explanation for why the film exists to begin with, although truthfully this is not required for you to have a good time watching the film, which is why it came fourth on this list, as despite my earlier grumblings, it is truly an amazing piece of musical art. I loved what Dragon Ball did in Superhero, as he actually made Piccolo a useful character for once, rather than having him just sitting on the sidelines and doing basically nothing. This, combined with the film's decision to move away from Vegeta and Goku holding the limelight, makes the film feel unique, as it is changing the formula that had been so apparent in most of the new films prior to this one. The film also effortlessly ties in callbacks to the previous events in Dragon Ball, such as the Red Ribbon Army, and at the same time introduces new characters and motivations that were not previously apparent. I strongly recommend you watch Totally Not Mark's review of the film if you have not already, as he breaks down the film in far more detail than I ever could. I don't rank it higher because as much as I talk up the film, there are some problems relating to how some of the characters get their power boosts, coupled with the overall plotting of the film. I am willing to give it some leeway in regards to its story, as the film is designed for young teens rather than for adults like other films on this list, but a few of the scenes make me think, why didn't you just do this before? Regarding the controversial animation, I did not find it that bad despite it being CG, as it is a nice break from the normal 2D animation, and it did use the fact that it was CG effectively to get in some great moving shots that would have been harder to undertake in 2D. Nevertheless, I would prefer a return to the 2D Dragon Ball films moving forward. As shown by the next film on this list, it is truly the medium that you are after in animated films. Jujitsu Kaisen 0 encompasses all the things I want from an anime film. Great animation, a good story, and stellar voice acting. The movie also avoids one of the pitfalls that prequel films usually fall into, which is that they make the sequel series required viewing to understand the film. However, in this case the pitfall is avoided, as the source material for Jujitsu Kaisen 0 came out before the mainline anime. So instead of relying on the viewer already knowing who the characters are in the series, this film treats the viewer as if they're seeing them for the first time, and need an explanation and development in who these new characters are. Which is refreshing, as other prequel films love having flashback introductions referencing future events to explain the world in which the characters live in, despite the mainline story characters not being currently a part of the current story. There are a few downsides to the film, such as the main character Yuta sharing the same voice actor as Shinji, which strongly affects how you feel about the character at the start. Along with an undeveloped romance angle which you feel has been curtailed as it's a prequel story and the author wanted to have it explored in more depth in the sequel series. Under normal circumstances, I would have ranked it as my favourite film of the year, but there is one other film that I preferred, despite its lack of action. But before I tell you which film I ranked number 1, I just want to go over some honourable mentions. Firstly, there were 2 films I was not able to see in the cinema. They were Pompo the Cynophile and Eternal 831. The reason I was unable to see Pompo the Cynophile was I was in AX meeting Studio Trigger and watching a man get murdered live on stage. While with Eternal 831, I was unable to see due to a work's Christmas due, and unfortunately it was only available for one day in cinemas, so I was unable to see it. Lastly, regarding Belle, I was umming and ahhing about what to do, as I technically saw it last year at the BFI, as they did an exclusive screening with the director, and then I thought, if that was the case, should I remove both Bubble and Summer Ghost from the list, as they were both BFI exclusive screenings. But after thinking about it for a while, I decided to go for the 2 new films, since unlike Belle, they were both not given a hyped popular release in cinemas, meaning that it was more important for me to rank them. For honesty's sake, I would have had Belle ranked as number 4, as although I enjoyed the music and story, I found it less compelling than One Piece Red, which is why it would be directly behind it. Now, on to my favourite anime film of the year. Summer Ghost has my favourite artwork of all films that came out in cinemas in 2022, period. Not just in anime. Every single frame in this film looks incredible, and is something you could easily see being an individual art piece on its own. The story is simple yet effective, and touches on how people can desire death for multiple reasons, and how we should make the most out of life, despite the bad situations we are currently in. The story may not be as grandiose as the other earlier entries on this list, but since the film is only 40 minutes long, it is concise and to the point. If you are thinking you cannot remember that Summer Ghost being released in cinemas, you are correct. Summer Ghost was a limited release that came out only in the BFI cinema, making it one of 2 exclusive BFI anime releases that occurred in 2022. What also made this event special was that Loundraw, the director of the film, actually came to the screening and did a public Q&A afterwards, which was amazing. This film, from purely an artistic sense, is the deserved number 1 of 2022, and something to recommend to people who want a good anime film that does not overstay its welcome and truly brings something unique to the anime medium. Listing off the rest of the rankings, I have Deer King at number 17, followed by Free the Final Stroke at 14, Fruit Basket Prelude at 13, Digimon Last Evolution at 12, and finally Bubble as the Bubble film at number 11. Honestly, I could have had either Digimon or Bubble at the number 10 spot, but they both had small niggles that made me prefer the other films on this list. It is not that they are bad films by any means, it is just that I preferred the other films on this list when I was watching them in cinema. So anyway, that wraps up my list. Please tell me in the comments how you would rank the films that came out this year in the UK, and which you thought were the best films of the year. Now we move on to 2023, where we have experienced the return of Sword Art Online and the return of Makono Shinkai. Will he produce another epic? I will see you in the cinema to find out.